I guess they are kind of unfashionable, huh?
Well, I never think of you as the most fashionable guy. In fact, I look at what you're wearing and I do the exact opposite.
Okay, good to know. All right, we are live. Okay, all right. Let me get this thing set up here. All right. Okay, welcome to another edition of Why Come Japan, the show where I interview creative people inside or outside of Japan. My name is Radrey, and I am joined by filmmaker Norman England. How you doing today, Norman?
I'm doing fine. I don't hear the cheering crowds or anything like that. So,
I need to get a soundboard, play this.
I need to ask you though, why do you call the show "Why Come Japan"? You're missing the preposition there. Is that some sort of racist thing going on there that I'm not like aware of?
Long story actually about that.
That's
it
fine.
actually
I'm just having a hard time. It's okay.
No. I mean, if you want to know the story, I can tell you. But
okay, well, you can tell me when we meet up sometime, and I'll add it to the Wikipedia page on.
All right, great.
Your chat group here or whatever. Anyway, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to have you on the podcast or live show, podcast / live show, I guess, whatever it is called these days. So just a little context for the audience of this show who don't know your background. You've worked in the Japanese film industry for how long? Like 10 years or 15 years?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really counting. It depends on, like if I said the first Japanese movie set I went to was Gamera 3, and that was back in 1998, I guess. So that was 20 years ago. But on that was the capacity of being a reporter. And I was doing stories for Fangoria magazine back there.
Oh, right.
So I guess slowly over the years of going onto various sets and stuff like that, and then becoming friends with filmmakers, then I get little jobs here and there, not enough to say, like I support myself, via the Japanese film industry, which I can say I do today. So I guess to say when did I was able to fully support myself financially just through cinema would be about, what was this, 2018? I guess about 6 or 7 years ago.
Really?
It was a slow build up, so I don't have to do the gaijin equivalent of washing dishes, which is teaching English, which is a fine profession. I actually miss it sometimes, and then I wake up. But anyway, you know what I mean. What I'm saying is,
I get it.
Getting out of doing that and into doing this took quite a number of years, and I wouldn't say it was like my goal, but it kind of worked out that way. And at this point in my life, it's for the most part, good work, interesting work. I meet a lot of interesting people, and I like that.
Right. And so, like, a majority of went into making like Godzilla, J-horror, and like other cult films. Is that right? Can I say that?
The what?
Like when you all these movies you've made in the past, or I guess not made, I guess you worked on. Is that the better terminology?
Or like I'm saying, when I've been on, for example, let's take Godzilla. I've been on Godzilla sets. Over 100 days of my life have been spent on various Godzilla sets, and I wouldn't say that I worked on the film. It's more like I was there as an interloper, kind of. No, but I mean, some of this. I mean, I did, like I've appeared in a couple of Godzilla films and have written extensively about the sets. Actually, Toho used a lot of my writing, like set reports and stuff like that on official site websites and stuff. And my photos have appeared in many Godzilla photo books. So, I mean, and I have made money off of Godzilla. I did a bunch of translation work for this recent animation Godzilla stuff. So, uh, if you understand what, but it's like really, you know, like I don't really, I don't feel comfortable saying like I worked on Godzilla, and I don't want to disrespect the people that actually were doing a lot of the grunt work on the set. I mean, when I was on,
Right. I
when I was
understand.
on the set, I also pitched in. I mean, that's kind of like the Japanese thing when you're on a movie set. It's like, oh, here's this big mountain over here, you know, and it's got to be lugged over here. And who's ever got a free hand? It's not like Hollywood where the unions are like, you know, you touch that and we'll break, you know, the Teamsters will break your hand or something like that. Here, it's not. In some ways, it should be. In other ways, it's like, hey, you know, Norman, help us out here. You know, we pick this thing up, we drag it over there, or making windows in buildings and stuff like that. You know, just whatever. So in that case, I guess I could say, yeah, you know, I did work on these things, and I made a lot of English labels for missiles and submarines and things like that. That's all screen visible. So okay, this is good because I'm kind of building up my confidence and saying, yeah, I did work on these gods.
Was that the plan?
It
All
wasn't
right.
the plan, but it was, you know, being a fan of that, of say giant monsters since I was a kid in New York. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a interesting development in my life. You know, I mean, I guess like when I worked in Manhattan, and I never, I guess in the 80s and early 90s, I never like hid my fondness for Japanese giant monster films. In fact, in my office in Manhattan, I had Godzilla posters on the wall, which always elicited a lot of laughs from customers and fellow coworkers, and I didn't really give a crap, you know. So kind of in a way, the last laugh is on them because I came here and then I got involved in something that I genuinely had affection for. So how many of us can say that?
True. I mean, so I thought I'd shout out the chat here. Uh, Sean Barry says, "Good evening, Norman. How have you been?" And he says you are the best part of Tokyo SOS. Just to let you know. I don't know who that is.
Well, Sean has just arrived to Japan for his first visit with his girlfriend, so I'm
Oh,
hoping he's
great.
having a good time. He's a pal of mine on Facebook,
Oh,
and
great.
he's one of the more interesting and balanced Godzilla fans. But I don't want to get into fan bashing, which
Actually, I kind of do want to get into that. Some interesting thing. Oh, we'll get into that later. I have a question about that later, but not fan bashing per se, but questions about fandom. All right, so
fandom. I mean, yeah, I don't mean like particular people in general, but just as we can talk about that later if that's what you.
yeah, that's what of
Yeah.
these questions that I have written up. So, I mean, now the story that you have told me about getting into this business really kind of all started from you just being a fan, right? Being a big fan of George A. Romero's zombie movie, Dawn of the Dead.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, I do writing. I write about cinema, and I don't think I think
Right.
everybody who writes about cinema, you have to start as, you know, you have to watch movies, and the only motivation you're going to get to watch movies is if you enjoy, you know, movies. So I think every writer about cinema, people who write about cinema, I mean, they have to just start off, you know, they like cinema, they watch a whole bunch of cinema, they discover that they've got kind of an opinion, you know, on cinema, or they have a certain amount of knowledge on the subject, and that they eventually feel confident that they can write about it. I mean, that's kind of my gig at Fangoria. I mean, Fangoria is, you know, the world's #1 horror movie magazine, and I mean, the editors there at the time, Tony Timpone and Mike Gingold. I mean, those guys are going to sniff a fake, you know, right away. I mean, and when you write those articles, you know that the people who are reading them also can tell a faker right away. So, I mean, the only way to um, have the ability to write for these, you know, especially these genre um, centric magazines is to have an intimate knowledge of the subject, you know. So yeah, you know, I would say sure, you know, I started out as a fan and I'm still a fan, you know. I mean, I can't say that I'm blown away by most of the movies that I see today, unfortunately, but I'm a huge fan of cinema, and I generally try to watch at least a movie a day, even if it's watching Dawn of the Dead for the 350th time.
Right. So you would say a lot of it was more about writing and less about being a fan. Or I guess both of them are kind of work hand in hand.
No, I mean, you start out as a fan,
You
and
start out as a fan, then you work your
start
way
out
up.
as a fan, and then you decide. I think in any capacity, how far are you going to take it? I mean, if I was into sports, I wish let me put it this way: I wish I was into sports, because there's a lot more money to make in sports than there is in like genre cinema. But I'm not into sports. It's one of the reasons I don't really do anime a lot. I mean, if someone offers me the job to subtitle an animation movie, I'll do it. But if someone asks me to write an article about Japanese animation, I wouldn't do it, because I don't really have an interest in it, and I really have no. I think people who read anything I wrote on the subject would be, but what the hell is this guy talking about? He doesn't know what he does, he doesn't know anything about the subject. So there are other people more qualified. When it comes to horror movies, when it comes to 80s horror films or 50s science fiction movies or Japanese giant monsters, I feel very qualified to write about it, and I enjoy writing about it. There's so much. There's such rich genres. There's so much to say once what's going on within them. So no, yeah. So I mean, yeah, writing about that stuff is great. I mean, it's a great outlet, and I feel very grateful that I have places that I can put my writing into, put my thoughts into. Like I said, Fangoria. I also write for the Japanese movie magazine Eiga Hiho, and I have a monthly column in that, and I can write really anything I want. And it's actually funny when you think about it. I have more freedom writing for the Japanese than I do for the Americans, which you would probably think it was the other way around, but it's really. I've always found in Japan that uh, they're more interested in, how can I say, like my own personal relationship with cinema, and they want to
Mhm.
know my feelings, my own personal feelings, my own personal point of view. But when I write for the Americans, they want to have a kind of neutral point of view. Like with Fangoria, you can't say, "Hey, I'm on the set of this movie, and oh my God, this is so completely incredible." It's got to be, if anything, you're going to say Fangoria is on the set, and this writer is talking to so and so director, blah 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 blah, and even that they don't encourage. So, but that's their style, and I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's kind of stylistically different than the Japanese, or especially Japanese are more into like essay writing. They like essays. So I guess like what I do for
Mhm.
Eiga Hito is I pick a subject and I try to bring in a unique point of view to it. Um, and also I have a wealth of experiences from the 80s and 70s and 80s of going to conventions, meeting all the big Marvel bullpen writers and artists and horror people, and working in New York City and going to Fangoria conventions, or just in the business that I was in New York, working at recording studios, meeting like musicians and and playing in a band in New York and meeting lots of pretty outrageous people and stuff like that. So I have a lot of um, stories and experiences that I can draw upon. And when I do my work for Eiga Hiho, I always try to incorporate something. For example, Star Trek. I also consider myself very knowledgeable on Star Trek, and I've met just about every actor and creator involved in the original series, which is now, seeing a Star Trek is like 52 years old now. I mean,
Jesus, is
we're
that
kind
old?
of pushing the envelope,
Damn.
on who's still around and stuff like that. And I consider myself pretty grateful. I've been watching Star Trek since the first day it was on air back in September of '66, and growing up with it. So those are for me very special experiences, and I feel very fortunate that in Egahiho, they allow me to express those, and that there those experiences, and that there's an audience for them here. And I don't really know if there is an audience for that in the US, but I suspect that there is. And one day I hope to share the stories that I do for Egahiho with an American audience.
Right. So I guess my question here is, what was your first gig? It was here in Japan, right? It was like writing an essay for a DVD. Was that it? I can't remember.
This is before DVDs.
Or was it like VHS? I don't know.
No, my first thing that I did really was for Dawn of the Dead was a Laserdisc set.
Laserdisc. That's what it was.
Laserdisc.
It's hard to believe. I can't even remember those things.
Well, it was, Dawn of the Dead is my number one favorite film of all time. And I mean, basically, the short story on this one is that Dario Argento, the Italian director Dario Argento, owned the international rights to Dawn of the Dead in non-English speaking territories. And I guess he was hard up for money, so he sold the rights in Japan to a Japanese company. And they right away released it into the theater. And I went to the theater, I was very happy. I hadn't seen it in a movie theater in like 10 years at that time. I guess it was like around 95 or something like that. And in their program book, they wrote some very incorrect information on the film. And they were claiming that the Dario Argento cut of the film was the superior cut, which I took great offense to. So I wrote to the company. I told them how wrong they were, and they wrote me back. And they're like, "This is fantastic. I mean, we love your point of view. What you wrote, can you do something for the Laserdisc?" So, I was very happy. So I wrote 2 pages in the Laserdisc, and I used photos and maps of the shopping center that's featured in the film, and then from that, I got a job being on the set with George Romero on a TV commercial he directed for Japan. And that was Biohazard 2. And that was back in...
No, in the US is Resident Evil 2, right?
Right. Biohazard here and Resident Evil there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, this is Capcom, because I was living in Osaka at the time, and Capcom is a Japanese company. That's based in Osaka, so it kind of worked out.
It's based in... I didn't know it was based in Osaka. Okay.
So it was really great. They contacted Gaga, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing a commercial with George Romero. Do you know anybody that like knows a lot about him?" And they're like, "Well, there's this wacky guy Norman who complained about our program book, and we can introduce you to him."
They really said wacky?
No, they didn't say wacky.
Okay.
Japanese are more polite than that.
Okay.
They might think it, but they won't say it. But I mean, and again, it goes back to being a fan. I mean, it was I've been Dawn of the Dead changed my life when I saw it for the first time, and the George Romero's work has been a positive influence on my life, and so. It was because of my passion for the film that got me my job at Fangoria. Because when I was on the set, I met a writer from Fangoria, and they needed photographs, and I also do photography too. So I was doing set photography on that.
American?
But yeah, it was for the commercial, the TV commercial. The
okay, they have not only just in Japan but also in America.
They shot it in Hollywood.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. You told me this.
So no, they had an awesome crew. I mean, George Romero was directing it, and what's his name? The DP on that was Paul Deming. I think that's how you say his name. He shot Evil Dead 2, and he shot all the my mind is blanking here. All the the goddamn TV show that you love so much, Twin Peaks. He shot Twin Peaks as well. The DP on I think all
Peter Deming.
Yeah, Peter Deming. That's it. I'm sorry. He was the DP on this commercial.
Oh, okay.
I mean, so they had a lot of heavyweights on the thing. It was really great. It's my first movie set. It was fantastic, you know, and George Romero's right there. We're just the two of us hanging out through the whole thing. So, and this is, you know, what I said is, you know, is my, if it hadn't been for my fanish passion for the film and drive to, you know, express, you know, my knowledge, then I would not be doing this work.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's just, you know, what am I supposed to say? I mean, it's like find out what you love and then just go for it. I mean, really, you know, that's what it is.
Okay, in the live chat, TKO Sam asks, "Wait, why did this movie change your life?" I'm guessing he's talking about Dawn of the Dead. You said that it changed your life, right?
Well, it changed my life in that, um, you know, I guess the movie came out. The movie came out. It played in the U.S. in '79, and I was living in Las Vegas at the time. I'm 19. Um, I didn't see the film until February of 1980. I had skipped it on its first run, and I was before I saw it. I was in our local in New York. I'm from a place called Rockland County, and I was in the shopping center there, and I heard some girl looking at all the shoppers, and she said, "Oh my God, this is just like in Dawn of the Dead," and I became very intrigued. You know what a shopping center and Dawn of the Dead could have in common. I was already a big fan of Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I'd seen that. I had a actually Super 8 copy of Night of the Living Dead that I just played ad infinitum. You know, a full five reel set of that. So I decided to go and see it, and you know, I mean, it really just showed the film what it did by, you know, especially focusing on the mall and focusing on American consumerism and capitalism. I mean, it really showed me what I had kind of sensed, a kind of like ugliness, you know, and materialism, you know, to the American experience, you know, and you know, it might be kind of passé to say it in a way, but it was sort of like um, zombies are dead, but they desire human flesh. But they don't really need the flesh because if they don't eat it, they're still dead. It doesn't give them any kind of nutrition. There's no nutritional value in it. It's just a thing that they desire for reasons that they don't know. And I really saw the connection, you know, to you know the heroes in the film. They're in the shopping center and they're kind of just amassing as much stuff, and eventually it's their downfall in the ending when they're trying to protect this this hollow American dream from the motorcycle bikers breaking into the mall. You know, so really, no, I mean that whole aspect really just showed, you know, my culture for me in a new light, and for me that's what genre cinema is supposed to do. You know, I still think it's, you know, I still think the film has meaning and impact. You know, and it's basically a low budget movie. I mean, the whole thing is a shocker. I mean, I watch it as often as I can, not as often as I used to, but as often as I can.
Wait, how much did that movie even cost to make? Do you know how much the quote
Like
was?
$500,000 back then.
Oh. Like,
So
what is it, like $100 million is considered a low budget movie nowadays? What is the figure?
it was always my dream to make a movie at the same cost as Star Wars, which is like $9 or $10 million. But even that today is like 9 or 10 million is like for that's still, you know, considered. I mean, for a major film, it's still on the low end. You know, I see films that are like, oh my God, I can't believe this movie costs as much as Star Wars. I mean, of course, that was, you know, 41 years ago.
Yeah,
Anyway,
true.
I hope that answers his question. But I mean,
No, yeah,
that's
no, I'm sure that answers his
and
question.
speaking of Romero, I mean, Romero basically is a socialist, you know, and I lean towards socialism myself, which I'm not embarrassed to say. You know, I
Well,
mean,
nowadays, yeah, it's probably
yeah,
okay to
no,
say.
it's always been like that. I mean, socialism's always taken a beating. I mean, if you go back to writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald or Edward Bellamy, I mean, socialism was a big, huge movement back in the late 19th century. I mean, it was really coming to America, and the capitalists did everything they could to, give it a bad image, put it down. But I mean, everybody, all the major writers were really giving a boost to it. But they didn't want what happened in the Soviet Union to happen in the U.S. So they kind of gave it a dirty name, unjustifiably gave it a dirty name, and it's really maintained that image. In people who really speak out of it about it, they really don't know what they're talking about, and they don't even recognize when they do have. There are socialistic institutions in the U.S. I mean, that's what Social Security is, but people don't. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. But
Yeah, no.
that I
So
have to say,
everybody leaves the podcast.
yeah, I appreciated about George Romero was he didn't shy away from that he didn't try to do what's been the downfall in America and in Britain is trying to give these equal time to both sides of the issue. I mean, he was pretty straightforward with the way he viewed life, and that's I participated in a book last year about George Romero, which actually I think I have right here. This right here, if you can see right there.
Oh, nice.
And there's my name on the thing. So this came out last year, right after Romero died, unfortunately. That was, for me, a great tragedy, but nothing's permanent.
What did he die of? Was it cancer?
Cancer.
I can't remember.
Like what everybody dies from,
Yeah, well, I mean,
right.
Until we find the cure for it, I guess. Well, I guess that's easier said than done. All right, so I want to talk about fandom in particular. What do you think of fandom nowadays? I mean, I know as a friend, we've always seemed to be like talking about this, especially on Facebook or whatever.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
you think I think it's a lot different than how it was.
Well, I mean
just like when I was growing up as a kid.
We can go to another question, can't we? I don't want to start complaining,
Okay.
Maybe I would rather. I mean, if I had to complain about anything, and I don't even want to say it's a complaint. It's more what fans. Let's say you're a fan and you're a fan of a genre, and let's say it's the superhero genre because that's so big right now. Marvel movies are very successful, and DC is doing its damnedest to try and match their success. The things that fans accept today are very different from what fans would accept in the past, and that's where my major source of bitching comes about. That the Marvel films, for the most part, some of them I quite like, but a lot of them, they focus in on things, that are not unique to, say, the comic situation. So they focus in, like in a lot of American movies, focus in on family, protecting family. They use a lot of gimmick. They focus in on the fighting. This is like, when I read comics as a kid, of course, Spider-Man's fighting Green Goblin or something like this, but the fighting scenes in the comics were just something that you sort of just passed over, and then you got to the conclusion of it. But when I watch the films, it's like the fights are everything. The fights are the climax of the thing, of the films. And I guess because films are, it's probably the medium too, that films are more visual in that way. I mean, it's just really like in the comics, fightings are like this with some kind of word balloons, around it. But, I just don't feel like when I'm watching Marvel superhero films, or if I'm watching Thor, especially Thor 1, which was like a frigging Harlequin romance novel, or Iron Man 3, where they have the audacity to destroy all those outrageously cool Iron Man suits for the woman that he loves. I mean, if I was a boy reading a comic, like that, I would have burnt it in the streets. That's all I'm saying. And I can't believe that, that a lot of people accept this kind of stuff. That I think it's trash. I think it's trash cinema. It's trash storytelling. It's obvious stuff. It's stuff that's geared towards non-fans. It's geared towards people that you know, they make these films not for the fans. Like the comics were written for the fans. I mean, I used to talk to Stan Lee all the time at comic conventions. He'd always ask me, "What do you want to see? What do you want?" You know, one of the things he asked me, "So what do you want? What do you want? Do you want the Thing to be able to transform at will, you know, back into human form like the Human Torch?" I'm like, "No way, don't do that." "Okay, got it, man." You know, but now, you know, and I always had a sense that, you know, they were doing it for us, plus they were adding their own kind of imagination to it. And now I feel that they're not doing it for people that are, say, into the core idea of it, but for people that are just there for the action, or they want to see the romance or those kind of touching moments, you know. Does that make any sense? Do you understand what I'm
No,
saying?
no, I totally get it. I mean,
So anyway,
it's
that's my gripe about these things, and I feel the same way watching the new Godzilla, the trailer for the new Godzilla film. I'm like, okay, great, you know. So they have these CG stuff that I suppose looks good. I mean, I
oh,
don't
you mean
know.
the US one, the new US one, the
The one
King
coming
of the
out 20,
Monsters or something?
you know, and it's like all I'm seeing is more family drama, even though, I mean, everyone's like, you know, I don't know what to say. Everyone seems to be going, you know, gaga over the thing, but they're really not revealing any story, and they're not really not showing us any special effects that I think are very special. But they kind of, you know, Hollywood's really honed their craft into an art form. You know, I don't want to say an art form. They've honed it into, you know, they're skilled at what they do, and they know what people respond to. And they're also, and like I said, a lot of fans are kind of following a carrot. You know, they know if you do this, this, and this, and you throw this, you know, you kind of, how can I say, get rid of the cheese factor.
What does that mean?
What that means is where, you know, when people say something looks cheesy, you know, like you look at movies from the
Right.
80s or something like that, and people say, "Oh my," or you look at old Godzilla movies and people call it cheesy. So they figured out what doesn't look cheesy. You know, realism doesn't look cheesy. But to me, cheesy suit, you know, knocking down a cardboard city. I mean, that's usually how people who don't know what they're talking about, that's how they describe, you know, Godzilla films. You know, and I don't think that that's cheesy. I think those things are very they're interesting to look at. And from being on the sets, I know how much work goes into them, and I know the difference between how can I say, giant giant monster movies that are made on very low budget compared to ones that have a budget, like, you know, Godzilla films. There is a big difference there. And, you know, I'm able to recognize that difference. I think to a lot of people, they just see anything that looks like a miniature and they label it cheesy. And really, that's their problem. So speaking as, say, a fan of this kind of stuff, for me, it's slightly heartbreaking to see, you know, the, you know, special effects that are made for people that are not able to recognize the quality, you know, the handmade quality that goes into that went into the success of Godzilla films, that went into what made these movies special, and just to abandon it, you know, because it happens to, you know, look more realistic, you know, really, for me, completely bizarre. So I mean, I feel that way about, you know, CG in general. That you know, I was very into CG when it first came out in the 80s. You know, seeing Tron, I saw Tron on opening day. I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Or The Last Starfighter. You know, The Abyss. You know, I saw The Abyss on opening night um, at the Ziegfeld on 6th Avenue in Manhattan. I mean, those were, you know, that whole Ed Harris and the silver, the not silver, the water tentacle thing coming out. That was all like really early CG stuff, and it was really fun. But then over the years, I noticed where we used to have all these names like Ray Harryhausen or Tom Savini or Rob Bottin, all these names. I don't know the name of anybody who creates CG. It's made by this impersonal corporation, and it really, for me, I mean, movies are things that people make. I mean, that's my own personal point of view. I mean, people don't have to agree with me, but that's I mean, my business is movies, and that's my philosophy on film. And of course, I use computers every day. I love my computer. I don't know how to spell. I'm the world's worst speller. I couldn't be a writer without spell check.
Right.
And I rely on it. I mean, we all rely on it, but it really depends on how far you go with it. I mean, let's say I was able to, computers were able to write paragraphs for me. I would think that was ridiculous. That if it was able to do grammar check in a way that was completely, rendered a perfect sentence. Oh, that's exactly what I wanted to write. I wouldn't do that because that's not the right way to write. You're smirking, Radley.
Right. No, I'm like trying to I have a question here, but I'm letting you finish.
Okay, I'm finished.
My question is,
show you this. I've been playing with this. This is my Sid from the TV show UFO. Isn't that really cool?
I never saw that show. UFO? When did that come out?
That came out in 1970 in Britain.
Oh, well, that's probably why. Was it on TV for a long time? I don't know if you called them seasons back then. Do you even use that terminology?
Yes, I use that terminology. And a season is like 7 to 12 episodes. And back then, it was like over 20 episodes, 25, 26 episodes. So yeah, UFO was a
because
show.
In England they call them series, but
no, the series, like Star Trek, is a series,
right.
And like the original Star Trek series is 3 seasons. Get your terminology correct.
All right. Yeah, I know. I'm low on my game here. It's late, All right. No, my question here was, you said
bedtime.
Yeah. Well, guilty as charged. So you said something about how the cheesiness factor is kind of replaced with what Hollywood deems as appropriate. Would you say what they replaced it with was like the family stuff, like the family, like having to shoehorn in every like family element into it?
Easy. It's strictly, has to do with special effects. The family stuff is just, it's been a trend that's been going on. I write about this in Egahiho all the time. I mean, it's like watching World War. One of the great offenders is World War Z. I mean, and Brad Pitt running around going, "My family, my family." I put that up on Facebook one time when he's in that European hospital at the ending of the film, and he writes on a piece of paper and he holds it up to a monitor so the people can see him, and it says, "Tell my family I love them." Like, they do this kind of thing because it's like the lowest common denominator. I mean, what are you supposed to say? Yeah, I hate families. No one's going to say that, So, it's a thing that appeals to everyone. I mean, it's like, you want to get a bunch of likes on Facebook, you put up a picture of a cute cat. I mean, nobody hates kittens, and baby pictures. No one's going to put an angry symbol on the baby photo. Maybe my friend Yoshiki would do that, but I mean, most people, most people are, they're going to be, "Oh my God, it's so adorable," and these are just ways to protect themselves, and to give it the biggest appeal. And this is why generally I reject these films, because these films are not saying anything, say in the way Dawn of the Dead said something. Dawn of the Dead told me something about the world I live in, or the original Planet of the Apes, the first Planet of the Apes movie. really, I mean, I saw that when I was 10, and it just told me, that the world that I live in is headed for the trash can, unless we get our act together. But
Hmm.
then watching these recent Planet of the Apes movies, which are total garbage, totally about family. Caesar's motivation is to get revenge. I mean, it's garbage. What did I do yesterday? I was at my favorite video store in Tokyo, in Japan, Video Market. It's in Shinjuku, and they had on sale. They had War for the Planet of the Apes, and I took it out and I went to the guy who runs the store. I said, "Do you have a garbage can back there anywhere?" He started cracking up. No, I love the original Planet of the Apes because they didn't pull punches, and now they always pull. All these genre films pull punches. They're like, it's like Hollywood and Harvey Weinstein. That now, oh my God, and they weren't doing crap about it when they knew what was going on. And they throw in these. I'm completely liberal and I agree with these things, but it's just all like lip service. It's just they don't care. So what's Godzilla going to do? They're going to throw in some crummy environmentalist message in the film. We're supposed to be, oh my God, yeah, that's so right. But they're not punching us in the gut. They give us an escape route so we can feel good about ourselves. This is what I'm talking about with Planet of the Apes. There was no escape, from what mankind did to its own civilization. Dawn of the Dead told me what my culture was. There was no way out because the culture had already collapsed. So that's what's missing from these. That's what genre cinema is supposed to do, and the genre cinema today is not doing that. So I call it crap because it is crap. It's crap for the masses, and that's what the masses want. They want to be entertained. I want to be entertained too, but that doesn't mean I have to look at okay, great entertainment. Female mud wrestling is entertainment, but I don't have. But just because, say, it might be, as a guy watching, hot chicks, roll around in the mud might give a thrill. It doesn't mean it's worth watching.
I got to shout out Yoshiki Takahashi in the chat says, but I know one of Norman's guilty pleasures is Lost in Space.
Hey,
is it a guilty pleasure?
Lost in Space is an awesome show.
Is it? Not the new one, right? On Netflix.
Oh, the new one was more family garbage.
Everybody comments about
I don't want to get into Lost in Space. Lost in Space is a fantastic show. I love Lost in Space. Lost in Space, came on a year before Star Trek. It's got its points. It's not a very intellectually challenging show, but it's a very colorful show. It's produced by Irwin Allen of the Poseidon Adventure fame, Towering Inferno. Irwin Allen's TV shows, his 4 science fiction TV shows in the 1960s, all have kind of a unique visual value to them, and the music's fantastic. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith, his early work is all on Lost in Space. No, it's great stuff. I'm John Williams. Excuse me, what I'm saying. And Jerry Goldsmith. John Williams, wrote the theme songs for all the Irwin Allen TV shows. So Yoshiki can suck it.
So you don't consider it a quote unquote guilty pleasure? It's just a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Okay.
It's a pleasure. But he likes to give me a hard time about it. And my girlfriend refuses to watch episodes of it. But
what's so bad about it?
I don't get on like, oh my God, everybody has to watch Lost in Space. I would say that about Dawn of the Dead and other things, but I wouldn't say that about Lost in Space. It's, yeah.
Well, what do you think people hate about it then?
What, Lost in Space?
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be something somebody doesn't like. Otherwise,
well, I mean, nobody likes everything, I mean, there's always somebody, I mean, and I mean, the bottom line too is, I mean, it's just movies. So, I mean, I don't want to be like, overly serious about the whole thing. I mean, if somebody said to me, I don't like Dawn of the Dead, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. I mean, it's an important film to me, but I mean, okay, it is, when it boils down to it, it's just a film. They're all just, just movies and stuff like that. I mean, that's what I mean, even though I consider myself a super fan, you know, I mean, I try to keep some kind of balance to the whole thing. I don't want to be one of those guys, getting angry and spittling and say, do you realize that when Kirk was fighting Khan and blah blah blah, like, that it's actually, these are historical documents, as said in Galaxy Quest, if you've seen Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, yeah. When did that come out?
The
99?
alien thought that the Star Trek-esque show was reality, and they called them historical documents. Okay, forget it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think, like, that movie came out a long time ago. Galaxy Quest, 1999, right? Am I wrong?
Oh, it was like back in
2001, maybe?
No, it was in the late 90s.
Okay. All right.
It wasn't that long ago.
Well, it's certainly better than the Orville, so but
That I refuse to watch, so
don't touch that with like a 500-foot pole.
I can say I like Discovery. I like Star Trek Discovery. It's not exactly what I would do if someone gave me the creative reins on Star Trek, but yeah, I mean, I have to admit that times change, and sensibilities change. And like before, with the new Lost in Space, I thought was garbage. I watched every episode because Lost in Space is another area of my expertise, but it got better, but it still didn't get much better. But Discovery, I don't know. I mean, it surprises me. I'm looking forward to the second season. So, though I do have to say, all those J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies were trash.
I only saw the first one.
Yeah, well, they only got worse. And
Well,
we're starting at the bottom, and it's like going lower and lower.
Well, I don't know. I'm like, why is a Beastie Boys song in the third movie, right?
I know if Yoshki's still listening, he's snickering. I mean, that was an offense against humankind. So yeah, that was bad.
Well, like the new Star Trek. I'm not much of a Trekkie, but I mean the new Star Trek. It's not really like, it doesn't fit the mold of, like, let's say, like the Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or Voyager, right?
It does in a way.
Okay.
I think that that it's I mean, it's been around now for 50 years. And I mean, basically, I don't need any new Star Trek. I mean, even like back in the 70s when we had no Star Trek, the Dark Ages, we had this like Bring Back Star Trek campaign. I still have a bumper sticker that says Bring Back Star Trek on it. And then in the 90s, when Voyager was on, like, I mean, there were 3 TV shows, I think, on at the same time. It was like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager was going on. I was getting to the point where it's like, no more Star Trek, like there's enough, it's really said what it has to say, and that in a way, that's another gripe I have today, that all the things that are popular are the things that were popular when I was a kid. And I feel sorry for younger people today. If I have to say my age, I'm 59, but
it's fine. Anyway, you'll be able to figure it out from the media you like.
Cool. What I'm saying is, it's like, I feel like when I was a kid, is like, I mean, other than say Universal Monsters and stuff, I mean, I really didn't want to watch the crap my dad was watching or listen to the music my dad was, as cool as I thought my dad was. I didn't want to listen to. I wanted my own identity.
Mm-hmm.
When I look around, I mean, there's a lot of new stuff, but the stuff that's really, and the Star Trek stuff, all the Marvel stuff. I mean, all these Marvel comics, I read them back in the late 60s and early 70s. It's like, okay, great. I mean, there are people my age who feel very arrogant that the stuff of their youth, is being, is so celebrated today. And for me, I think it's sad. I want to see stuff. I want to see new stuff. I want to look at something and go, God, why wasn't that around when I was a kid? You know, but I don't feel that. I feel the stuff's inferior. You know, it's you know, endless remakes telling the same story over and, you know, I mean, there is stuff out there like Black Mirror. I happen to like Black Mirror a lot. I find that a challenging show.
Right.
You know,
Ah, shoot. I think I'm losing the connection.
impact that it used to have. So isn't this show supposed to be about Japan or something like this? I mean,
Yeah, I
like
don't know. It's just a hangout show. That's really all it is.
Your home, and where are you from, Radley? Hoboken, New Jersey?
From Colorado. Well, I don't know. I was born in New York, Syracuse.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, wait, you're not a fan of Syracuse?
Oh, I thought you were born in Circus.
No, Syracuse, New York. Then I moved later to Colorado Springs, because my father was in the military.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I guess if I had to answer the question, would probably be Japan. There's several reasons. I mean, I guess that's why this is the namesake of the show. I was going to ask that question, but I was going to leave it towards the end. But I was going to let you finish. All right. Let me pivot a bit here. So you write for a Japanese publication named Eihiho, and in English you'd call that. Did I say it wrong? All right. Been here living 10 years. I still can't get it right. It's called, in English, you'd say Video Treasures. Can I say that? Or not video. That's a company. Movie Treasures. Uh-oh. I think yeah, right.
You just hit yourself. I'm breaking up here through the modern technology here.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. Like, my internet connection says it's stable, which is weird. You can hear me fine, right?
I hear you. Well, not really, but I hear you fine now. So
okay.
Maybe you shouldn't move a lot so it doesn't like tax the connection. I don't know.
I don't think that's it. I probably just need to upgrade my internet. Probably.
Did I show you my Sid from UFO?
Yes.
Oh, I did.
You showed me your Sid.
Did I show you
right.
about this at Video Market? This is a Dawn of the Dead air freshener.
That's kind of cool.
Supposed to hang from my car, like Puerto Rican guy lay and stuff, but I don't have a car, so.
Yeah, well, I don't
okay,
either.
so you're gonna ask me something important that will change the world.
Yeah, of course. All right, so you write for a publication called Eihiho, Video Treasures in English, and every week you write about your life basically in New York City.
Every month,
I should say that, not every week. I get used to like saying these set phrases, so like my mind just like says one set thing over and over again. I don't know. Maybe you have this problem.
That's the lamest excuse I've ever.
All right, well, I got to come up with something. You got to forgive me.
Here, I have a razor sitting right here. You can slit your wrist with it later.
All right, maybe that might work. Yeah, so you're in so this monthly magazine. You write mostly about living in New York City and having the more nostalgic grindhouse movie theater experience. And I understand that this collection of like monthly stories that you do every week is going to be put into a book recently.
Well, that's what supposedly is happening right now. So I'm working on it, and it's being translated now by Yoshiki, who's been translating my articles from the beginning. I don't write in Japanese.
Right.
Well, that's been going on. I've been doing this for 6 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, we're kind of compiling them, and it's the early ones were right now. Today, I have a full page in the magazine, but in the beginning, it was like a third of a page, and then they started getting longer until I took over half of a page, and then I just started making them longer, and then I guess after 2 years, they're like, okay, you just have a page. And
not bad.
So no, it's great. I mean, it's one of the biggest selling movie magazines in Japan. And, when I go to movie events and stuff, there's always someone comes up to me to say, I read your stuff. And then they throw in an egg.
Japanese fans, of course, right?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever put it in English? Make a
No, I mean, I'd like to. I don't really know a lot of publishers and stuff in the US and stuff, but I'd like to do that. I mean, I'm writing it as if it's going to be published in English.
okay.
If
I see.
that also makes any sense.
I see.
You
See,
just, you know,
you've written other books before, and it's always been through someone. Is that right?
what?
I mean, like your publisher, I should say. When I mean through someone, it's
Well,
not like you've ever self-published.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I get asked to write something, so I do, like the George Romero book, or I wrote part of a book on dystopian movies that came out earlier this year, and I did a big thing on Planet of the Apes. And so the publisher said, "We're putting out a book on dystopian cinema, and why don't you write about Planet of the Apes?" And I'm like, "You got it, as long as I don't have to really touch on the new garbage."
I saw the last one, not the war, but the one before that. I thought it was all right. Eh.
Don't bring your problems to the table, man.
All right. Hindsight's 2020, as they say. I don't know.
Right.
Okay. All right.
No, I have to say the second one I thought was getting better.
Okay.
You know, but it still didn't. And just to get back into Planet of the Apes, it still didn't make me feel bad to be a human being. You know, that's what, like, that's what I mean. They're like the Hollywood films, because they cost so much to make, is they have to be careful that they're not, you know, hurting the audience's precious feelings. And that's a big difference. You know, when genre films have a lower budget, they can be more biting, because, you know, they're not going to be these huge blockbusters, you know, and the people, that regular people aren't going to come out for these films. So the filmmakers can really, you know, go for the jugular, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
All right. So here's a really
ask me something interesting, please.
All right. This is something really loaded. Because I really want to know what you have to say about it. I don't know. You can refuse if you want, but we were talking off the record earlier about how I felt like I've never seen any good Japanese movies in a long time. I believe you said there's a reason for this.
Did I?
Yeah, like I was just kind of lamenting, like, man, I haven't seen a good, you know, like Mike movie in a long time, or I haven't seen a good, like, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
maybe...
no, okay, I understand what you're saying. I mean, you know, I mean, there's another long discussion. I mean, basically, you know, the real problem in the Japanese movie industry has brought it upon itself is because the studios used to control movies, and then the studios got lazy, and they started making, you know, star vehicle films, idol vehicle films. And then by doing that, they gave all their power to the jumusho, you know, to the talent agencies. Until now, it's the talent agencies that call the shots in the industry. The talent agencies are the ones that greenlight productions. I mean, I subtitle a lot of films. Some films, it's like that guy who, Akimoto, the guy at AKB48. I mean, this guy who is completely unqualified comes up with movie ideas and places his AKB girls in them in the studio.
Okay.
Like this. And, you know, when I have to translate the PR for this stuff, the Japanese PR is completely lazy. It's like starring AKB48 so-and-so, you know, and I have to say to the people there, it's like, you know, well, great. I mean, it's just another skinny Asian girl to the foreigners. I hope that wasn't racist.
It's fine.
But you know, and it's not going to fly because they don't know who AKB48 or the SK whatever so-and-so, or, you know, Morning Musume or whoever. They don't know who these people are. They're going to stand on the merits of their acting ability, and usually they're not actors, you know, and they're fans. They just rely on the fans coming out to see them. So, you know, if that becomes the basis of your your casting and, you know, the films you're going to make, you know, it's going to be, you're going to have a lot fewer interesting films, you know, than if you're really making cinema, you know, which I think the Japanese used to be invested in, you know, it was the directors and it was the studios that were trying to make the best movies that they could, you know, and now they're just trying to get by. I mean, basically that's it. Budgets keep getting lower and lower. I mean, I subtitle stuff where it's like, I look at the film and I go, this movie was shot in less than 10 days. And then I meet the director and I'm like, so how long was the shoot? Oh, 8 days. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Got it. You know, and it looks it. You know, and I mean, the idea might be fine. Like I just subtitled a film. I'm not going to say the title of the film. I subtitled the film. I found it kind of interesting and funny in parts. It was kind of extreme, violent film, and it was kind of making fun of everybody in Japan, basically. But the filmmaking, the technique of the film was so low that, like, I showed some clips to my girlfriend, and she was like, she can't get past just the low. You know, I think it was probably shot on an iPhone for all I know. You know, but these
There's some good movies shot in iPhones nowadays.
Yeah, well, not in Japan that I know of. You know, those jobs, and not. I don't want to just dismiss the whole industry as being garbage, because there's some films. I like the movie Misu Miso, like Liver Leaf. I subtitled that for Nikatsu.
Okay,
that was a really violent film, and I thought it was well done. I recommended that to Fantasia. Shusuke Kaneko, his movie last year, which was a movie about the idol industry. Not about the idol industry, it was about what is a Japanese idol. And it wasn't about the actresses being in it, you know, this actress from so-and-so. It was just about, you know, what is a Japanese idol and what does it mean to Japanese fans. I thought it was very well done. I thought that I've seen the film a couple times. I'm actually subtitling it right now.
Okay.
And I think that a film like that has value abroad because it shows an aspect of Japanese culture. It pretty much defines an aspect of Japanese culture that I don't think foreigners are really aware of. You know, so I mean, there are films here and there, you know, but I don't think it's like what it was. I mean, the Japanese industry is a shadow of what it was in the 50s and the 60s. You know, that was what was it? There was a kind of an incident at the Tokyo International Film Festival, I think 2 years ago, because the British magazine Empire magazine, whatever, it's a film magazine.
I know of it.
Do you know that one?
Mm-hmm.
They came out with a list of like the top 100, the top 250 non-English, you know, the best top 250 non-English language movies, and Seven Samurai was #1. And the guy, I guess the guy running the thing in his opening speech was like, "Bonsai, bonsai, we made the greatest, you know, non-English language film of all time." It's like, yeah, fantastic. 60 years ago, you know, and none of you people had anything to do with the film, you know, and my feeling is, oh, okay, well then I guess you might as well just shut down the whole industry since you won. You know. So I mean, that kind of an attitude is horrendous, you know. It's an insult to the filmmakers that did work hard, you know, in the industry. You know, I interview, you know, and I talk to Japanese filmmakers all the time, and they're always crying to me about the working conditions and the inability to tell the stories that they want to tell. You know, I mean, you know, that sort of thing.
What kind of stories do they want to tell usually? I mean, I guess if you can.
I don't know. I'm not going to tell me your story. I'm just saying, you know, that they don't have the resources either. You know, really.
It's all about the resources, really.
The resources are also a big issue, you know, and this is what I was saying. the beginning of this is because it's become star-based. It's always been slightly star-based, but it's more than ever. It's like, so the people are satisfied, just the audience members are satisfied just to see the people that they like on screen, you know, and then that becomes your art direction. That becomes your spectacle, going to see, you know, whoever it is that you like so much, and there they are. Oh my God, you know, the Americans might have all this money, special effects, but look who we have. You know, so that's in the cinema here, and if that's your draw, I mean, it's pretty weak, and especially on the front, it's even weaker. And this is why when you look at film festivals abroad, they used to be filled with Japanese, all the, like in Asian film festivals where the majority was Japanese films, and now the Japanese films are far and few between. And it's bad news for me because I do subtitling, you know, and it's in my best interest that the Japanese cinema does better.
Yeah, true. All right, so I'm gonna switch gears here. I guess since the name of the show is called "Why Come Japan," I suppose I should ask this question. What is it that you tell people? I mean, sure, it's a question you get all the time. At least I get it all the time.
I'm here for the drugs.
For the super drugs. You remember that building? Super drugs? They have like American drug too. It's like Japanese.
No,
English.
but I actually, back in the 80s, I knew Japanese people that lived in New York, and I'm like, so why did you come to New York? And they would say, I'm here for the pot. You know, I'm
really
here to smoke. Okay. No, I know guys that lived in New York just because they had access to marijuana. But no, I mean, why am I in Japan? I mean, I don't know. I just hit 25 years here. And, you know, I mean, I bitch about the place a lot, but no, I mean, I kind of like it. I mean, I still free, you know, walking down the street and I'm like, hey, man, you're living in a foreign country, you know, and of all places, Japan. I mean, how did this happen? You know, and I like that. I mean, I like having unusual life experiences, you know, and you know, and also a lot of times, I mean, I don't really always like interacting with people, you know, and I find Japan's a good place. You know, I mean, I like going back to the U.S., you know, going to California before my parents passed away, or, you know, going back to New York. I'm going to New York and Pennsylvania in October for a couple weeks. Pennsylvania, just to be involved in the 50th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead.
Nice.
But when I go back home, you know, it's always you go to a cafe and the people are like, hey, man, how you doing, man? Especially California. Hey, man, what you doing there? That looks really interesting. And, you know, and me, I want to sit and do some writing. And it's like, don't talk to me, man. You know, I don't really have that issue when I'm in Japan. You know, I mean, that wasn't the reason I came to Japan, but that was something I just
leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Don't talk to me. But on the other hand, like just like yesterday, I went to a screening of I Drink Your Blood. And
Okay.
I Drink Your Blood is my second favorite film of all time. But I mean, they had two screenings. I went to both screenings. And there are people there that they know who I am. They know me from my writing in Ega Hiho, and they're buzzing like flies, like 10 feet off. Like, should I approach him? Should I talk to him? And I just want to go up and shake them and say, just talk to me if you want to talk to me. I mean, some people do come up and say, oh, you know, I read your stuff all the time. You know, what are you writing next issue and things like that. But you see a lot of these people, like here, it's the T-shirt effect. Let me say this. Like I was in New York 2 years ago. I spent a month back on the Lower East Side, and you know, I go out, I'm wearing, you know, like a Dawn of the Dead T-shirt, and a guy will come up. He goes, "Oh man, that shirt is awesome! I love Dawn of the Dead. George Romero rules." You know, in Japan, it's like nothing. You know, or I'll see. I saw a guy wearing a zombie T-shirt at a Matsuri last week. in my town. I came up to him, it's like, yo, in Japanese, I said, you know, yo, man, zombies rock. And the guy was like, the guy just was like, huh? Like, so, and that way, sometimes I want more, you know, interaction with strangers, which you really don't get in Japan. But I mean, but these days, kind of the less the better, unless I'm in a kind of social situation, you know. But but as for coming to Japan, I mean, like, you know, back in New York, I was in a band, and my band broke up, and I had been interested in Japan during the bubble time, just before your time, I'm sure.
Right.
And I I have the opportunity to reset my life. I was 34 at the time. I had my opportunity to reset my life, and I thought that that was kind of an extreme thing to do, especially back then. I mean, you know, back then, God, I thought back in the 90s that Japan was foreigners, you know, but compared to today, I mean, it's unbelievable, you know, especially, I mean, that the yen has gotten weaker has really helped to bring a lot of tourists over.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you know, even back in the 90s, I talked to people that had been here since the 70s, you know, in the early 80s, and like, I'd go out and I wouldn't see a single foreigner, even in Tokyo.
Right.
You know, and I forget about it today. I mean, I get on the subway, you know, and I don't know. I'm not saying, you know, I know where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not saying that that's the reason that I came, but I'm just saying, you know, how different it was, you know, and I think that was an appealing thing. Not the attention. I do not like when people talk to me just because I'm a foreigner. I mean, in the beginning, it was a novelty. Now it's a pain in the ass, you know. And I don't like when people say, "Oh, your Japanese is very good." Now I used to get a little nasty about it. Now I just thank you very much, because I don't want to get in. I want to cut that conversation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as short as possible. You know.
Yeah, usually when I get those questions, I just sort of like, I usually try to figure out where they're coming from when they're asking that question. You know what I mean?
Well, I got asked yesterday, and I was in the Starbucks across from Kinokuniya, which is flooded with foreigners. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure the people on the counter, you know, have to deal with English most of the day now.
Right.
And then when they get foreign-speaking foreigners, it's kind of, oh, wow, great, you know.
You think it felt kind of condescending in the beginning?
No, I think they feel kind of just surprised, and they don't mean it. I mean, they don't do like the American thing where they just speak English at you louder, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We did do that.
You know, I mean, not in New York. I mean, not in New York City. You get your ass handed to you if you were that overtly, how can I say, idiotic or not international enough. I don't know what the word is, but the but what I'm saying, you know, coming to Japan was just like, I thought I could kind of start some new adventure off, and I had no, uh, I didn't really know what I was getting into when I came here, you know. And
Okay.
I think generally speaking, it's worked out. You know, it's worked out for me. I've found my niche here. I've always liked movies. You know, even my mom, before I got into music, I was into cinema, and I got diverted into music. And when I got into the movie industry here, my mom was like, "Oh, this is so great," you know, because I always knew you were destined for film, you know. So, you know, and yeah, and I still find it exciting. I just worked on a TV show with Iguchi, you know, director I've
On
worked with.
Naboru.
Yeah, and it was kind of a goofy TV show about two idol girls who, I guess, season one was them learning how to work on a ship, and season two is them traveling around, you know, traveling around Asia, on some ship, and they have to speak English. So Iguchi called me up and said, Norman, I got English, and nobody knows how to speak English, and can you double check all the dialogue and come on set and work with the actors and make sure they speak everything correctly? And it was challenging. I mean, none of them could really speak at all. They were very nervous about it, and I like, that's one of the jobs I do sometimes, is a kind of speech coaching thing. And no, and I had a great time. I mean, it's fun, even though it was a small, low budget thing. And it's not what I would choose to watch or I would choose to work on, but I still like being on sets, and I like working with actors and stuff like that. So, in that way, I was like, and that it's like, oh, this is really cool, that I found this kind of work in Japan, So in that way, I'm grateful for I'm grateful for the things, like the Eiga Hiho work, my friendship with a lot of people, Yoshiki Kaneko, my girlfriend Miyako, this Radley guy on the other side of my screen who I don't see as often as I should, and other people. I mean, I could, keep going on. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my experiences on the Godzilla set. I mean, I've always been a Godzilla fan. I mean, I got to wear the Godzilla suit, and no other foreigner has ever worn a screen suit. I wore it during the production.
It's on Wikipedia, isn't it? That you're like one of the first. I remember reading your Wikipedia page.
Oh, yeah. Well, my Wikipedia, whatever about Wikipedia, it got deleted.
What?
It got
How?
And I think
you make some fan really angry.
It made me laugh because I guess 10 years ago suddenly there was a Wikipedia page, and then the Wikipedia page expanded, and then it became a Japanese Wikipedia page.
Okay.
So every now and then I would check it in. Okay, it's expanded, blah, blah, blah. And then one day there was a note saying, this reads like the guy wrote it himself. Oh, okay. And then it got deleted by one of their people. And I've just been like watching this thing, like, from afar, like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess I'm not a human being. I'm not important anymore, The Japanese is still up, and I think the Japanese now is saying the same thing, saying like, who is this guy and why does he have a Wikipedia page? I'm like, okay. I mean, if you want to delete it, I mean, be my guest. I mean, it doesn't affect my work at all, really. I mean, I don't take those kind of things very seriously. Like I don't take awards or things like that very seriously. I take my work very seriously, but I don't take that kind of stuff. Kind of. I mean, that's the same thing in fandom. We were talking about fandom before. That whole kind of king of fandom, kind of, especially with the Japanese, foreign fans of Japanese stuff. Are some of the bizarre people that I think I've ever had the displeasure of meeting in my life. Not everybody. You know who you are on both sides of the camp. But I mean, there's a.
Is that Norman throwing shade? Oh,
there's a thing because what's really weird, especially in the Godzilla fandom, is this reverence for all Japanese people. Because the thinking goes, and you're ready for this one. The thinking goes that you have a connection to Godzilla if you possess the all-important Japanese DNA. It somehow puts you. It would be like me saying, Radley, you realize as being born in the United States, it makes you somehow closer and more connected to the Star Wars franchise. I mean, what would you say to that? So it's like at these events when they have a Japanese, it's like we got a Japanese in the house, and that's a problem. I mean, Japanese people, when they hear me explain that, they crack up. Like what? But you understand what I'm saying?
No, I totally what you're saying. I mean, probably because it's such a novelty to them. Maybe I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean a novelty or whatever, but it's unhealthy.
Yeah. What would you call that?
It makes for people to act very weird, you know, and I really don't want anything to do with it, you know. And I mean, yeah, I'm super into Godzilla. I have a lot of unique experiences. When I'm saying when it comes to say Godzilla, I have a lot of very unique experiences, which I want to share, but I don't want to get involved with a really bizarre fandom.
Mm-hmm.
People, you know, I do know people in the fandom, and they contact me. They come to Japan. They say, "Hey, Norman, can I get together?" I'm like, most of the time, I'm all for that, you know, because I like to talk to people, and you know, I like to make new friends. I made a good friend last year, a guy named Matt, Godzilla fan. He really wants, he's studying to be a filmmaker. He wants to know about my filmmaking experience. No, it's good. I love sharing that kind of information. And he made a short film. I thought it was great. You know, I'm like, you know, awesome, man. You know, that's comes from, you know, human interaction. But, you know,
Matt
not
Frank?
everybody's
Are you
like
talking
that.
about?
Huh?
A different Matt.
I think there are a lot of Matts in this world.
Is it Matt Frank? Is that who you're talking about, or is that a
Not
different
talking
Matt?
about Matt Frank. Matt Frank is an
Okay.
artist.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe he could be a filmmaker. I'm not sure. I mean, I met him myself at some comic book convention. Oh, did I lose the connection?
No, I'm waiting for the next question there.
Oh, okay. All right. No, it's just whenever I hear silence, I'm like saying, shit, did I lose a connection or something on my end or fuck? All right. Okay. So I've been doing this podcast for about 3 years now. And I've only, you know, this year I've started to do it weekly. And, you know, from assisting you on various projects we worked on, ABC's of Death, I don't know, various interviews for, what's the name of that Australian company? Mosner or something? I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, one of those projects included doing interviews. What do you think it is that makes a good interview? And how does one conduct a quote unquote good interview?
A good interview is when you make the other person cry.
Okay. How so?
I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of interviews, you know, for
Have you made people cry?
have I made anyone cry? I have made actresses cry.
Oh no.
I mean, no, on my own films, because they're not giving me what I want them to give me.
Well, that's not an interview though. Or
That's not, no, on an interview, I've never made anyone cry.
okay.
I mean, you don't. I mean, I just did an interview the other day for Fangoria. I mean, a good interview is when the person gives you interesting information, or you know, they tell you something about themselves that, you know, reveals something.
Okay.
I mean, like a bad interview. Let me put it this way: like a bad
Okay.
interview. Like I remember one of the first like Toho films I did a big interview thing for was a Shusuke Kaneko film called Crossfire. And I wanted to interview all the actors. I wanted to get the whole story. And I hadn't really done a lot of interviews at this point
Okay.
in my career. And the PR guy at Toho said, you know, you probably don't want to interview some of the younger actors. I'm like, no, I want to interview them. And it was like, so tell me, what's it like? I'm just whatever. Like, tell me, what's it like, you know, on the set? I mean, can you tell me stuff about the director? I mean, how's he directing you? How's he doing? Oh my God, he's so great. I just love being on the set. It's really fantastic. I mean, I love it. I love everything about it. You know, I mean, there's completely useless answer. You know, that has nothing. It doesn't tell me anything.
Mm-hmm.
You
Just
know,
like promotional shit or
well, it's
something.
not promotional stuff. The guy doesn't know how to talk. You know, the actor
Okay.
at the time. I mean, uh, I just bumped into him on the subway the other day too, which was kind of funny. Like,
Nice.
oh, he's like, remember me from Crossfire? And he's great in Crossfire. I mean, he's like the bad guy in the film. and he's a nice guy, but I mean, then let's say some actors will talk a lot, and they'll tell you, you can ask one question and they'll go on for 10 minutes, which isn't always a good thing. Like me, you ask me a question and I go on and on and on like that. And I think answering, when you do a lot of interviews, then you know how to answer questions. So when I do interviews, I like interviewing people that have done interviews before, because they know how to answer questions. They know what you're looking for. But I mean, I would say all you're doing is you're going out with a set of goals.
Right.
You're just trying to meet those goals. Let's say it's someone who's written a book and you want to know, what was the motivation for writing the book? I'm just say off the top of my head, what was the motivation for writing the book? What was the experience like making the book? How do you feel now that the book is done? Have you gotten any interesting feedback from the book? And working with them as they give answers, making sure that they clarify their answers and not asking yes or no questions, and not letting them turn a legitimate question into a yes or no answer. Avoiding those things. So, and those all come from experience, asking. Yeah, I've asked stupid questions. I can't think of any now because I don't want to. I probably blocked.
Yeah, you don't want to say them again, right?
I've been doing it. I've interviews for 20 years now. So, and it's funny. My first interview was with George Romero, which was, kind of like, oh my God, this is the guy I most want to interview, and he's my first interview. It's only downhill from here. So, and I look back on the questions that I asked him, and I think some of them were naive. I would do a better interview with him today. And I really wanted to do an extensive interview with him before he died, but he passed away.
Yeah, shit happens, I guess.
That's life. Don't say shit happens. It's
right.
Rude.
Is it? Yeah, I guess so.
Right. I mean, if you told me that your mom died and I said shit happens, I don't think you would be like,
yeah,
you're right, man, I feel better.
Yeah, that puts in the context.
And if you want a bit of advice, I mean, when doing interviews, is not being rude, being sensitive to the person's point of view.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you don't agree with them. Like if I was going to interview Charles Manson or something, I wouldn't come across as being, I wouldn't get a good interview if I was being
argumentative or something.
Yeah, or combative or trying to condemn him for the crime that he did, because then I'm not going to get any insight. He's going to lock up and he's going to say stuff back at me, probably, or just walk out. So that's what I mean. And showing an honest desire to understand their experience. Especially if I go to a movie set and I'm going to sit down with an actor, I have to show to them that I'm interested in, their experience on the set, what they're trying to do. And I think I'm good at doing that. And when they see that, they start coming up with information, and it's good stuff, and then it makes my work better, makes my articles more interesting, that kind of thing. And also, showing knowledge. Here's a good example. Like I did a documentary on Godzilla for the American DVD release of War of the Gargantuas and Rodan. And it's a piece called Bringing Godzilla Down to Size. And it's about the art direction in giant monster movies in Japan. Not so much about the monsters, but it's about like the artwork that goes in building the cities and stuff like that. And we have a section where we've got 3 Godzilla actors, Nakajima, Satsuma, and Kitagawa, like 3 generations of Godzilla actors. And I know Kitagawa really well from the, I was on 3 Godzilla productions with him. So, the interview was like, hey, Norman, remember this day on the set and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, can you elaborate on that? And Satsuma, who was Godzilla in the 90s, I've met him a bunch of times, but he's kind of an unusual human being and he doesn't really remember things. So I never expected, he never remembers me. The same with Nakajima. Nakajima I've interviewed a bunch of times and I've met him. I've been out for dinner with Satsuma, just like me and him and another guy several times, and he still doesn't remember me, but it's fine. I don't really care. He's an interesting guy. He's a funny guy. I like him. And with Nakajima, the same thing, but what I'm trying to say was, so when we're shooting the film was shot in 2008. And when we're shooting the film, I'm, talking to Satsuma, oh, I wore the Godzilla suit. And when I wore the Godzilla suit, I kind of had this experience. And he's like, oh, you get it. You get it. And he really got excited and he started revealing more, and the same thing with Nakajima. I talk about, throwing, I did actually work on Godzilla. It was nothing as, I wasn't, a staff member or anything like this. But as soon as they saw that I understood their experience, and I wasn't just asking questions like, what's it like to knock a building down? Because that's not what happens on the set. I mean, the Godzilla actors don't really knock buildings down. That's not what they're doing. And everything's very planned out. The buildings that they supposedly knock down are designed or pulled apart. They're blown apart. Other buildings, if they kick them, they would injure themselves because they're not going to fall apart. So not asking naive questions of, filmmakers, or even if, like I said before, if you're interviewing an author, it's good to have read books and to maybe have attempted to write a book yourself. The same way if you're interviewing a musician, you have to know about music and stuff like that. And when they see that, that you know something about it and you respect what they're doing, they're really going to open up.
Right. Yeah, no, I wanted to ask you this question because I know you always have some interesting insight in terms of not only, I mean, I've always asked you a question about living in Japan and, questions about working in the entertainment business, I guess you'd call it. So that's partially why I wanted to ask you that for some context. Just let you know. All right. Anything you want to say before we go? That's it. Time's up. I'm out of questions.
I live long and prosper. I don't know. Here, I have to show you something else really.
All right, let's see it.
And this is what Yoshiki should have done to try to shame me. Check this out.
Howard the Duck?
This is a pair ticket to Howard the Duck. I picked this up at a movie shop in Jimbocho.
Oh.
Howard the Duck is like one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time in space. People don't agree with me, but you gotta like what you gotta like.
All right. I mean, would you object if they made a Howard the Duck reboot?
I probably wouldn't care.
Okay.
I mean,
he was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't need to be.
Yeah,
but
I don't expect that they would, but I would have to reserve judgment until I see it. I mean, they would also do it all CG, and one of the things I like about the Howard movie are all the suits that they used. Some of them are pretty sketchy, which makes it even cooler.
I particularly like that.
Huh?
I particularly like that monster at the end. That was my favorite.
Oh no, I mean it's fantastic. I mean, they put this hideous thing on that. The movie is the movie for kids, is the movie for adults. I mean, the movie is it's just all over the place. Inappropriate humor, and terrible songs, which I happen to love every single one of. And
wait, what's a terrible song in that movie? I don't even remember.
You're not asking. singing Howard the Duck songs, which I could actually.
Okay, all right. Maybe
And then
that's a bad question.
that Phil Tippett, go motion creature at the ending is so completely hideous. It's like mesmerizing and beautiful in its ugliness, and it just, like, any kid would have an instant nightmare seeing this thing. And people actually complained that the film is not for kids due to this creature at the ending. That's what also makes the movie so great. And something that I think, and I just think everybody should see Howard the Duck.
Okay.
I can't believe this is the last thing I'm saying on your.
Well, we have some questions from the live chat if you want me to ask that.
Okay, ask a legitimate question, not your goofy question.
I don't know if a lot of these you want to answer, but do you want me to read all of them, or do you want me to read the ones I think are the best?
Why, there are that many? I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, my friend, this TQ Sam, he likes asking questions, so. Oh, did I lose you? What happened? Oh, okay. What's up with this connection, man?
But if I can ask quickly, my friend's going to make, and I think we're going to watch.
Okay, so just make it quick. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go because it seems like our connection's dying here. Not sure what that's all about.
Because I'm kind of like curious now.
Okay, all right. I lost the video feed, but I can still hear your voice.
Okay, that's probably.
Oh no, it's back now. Okay.
So
all right.
Question.
All right. Sorry. All right. Okay. Where is the favorite places to go in Tokyo?
Starbucks.
All right, another lightning round question. Where?
No, I don't know. No, I should be more serious about that. I don't really know. I mean,
I didn't know if you wanted the lightning round.
But I actually was in Roppongi the other day, screening of a film, and I hadn't been there in a while, and I walked around Midtown. It's spiffy over there, very expensive and nice and stuff. And I was like, I felt all like high society walking around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got tacos, and I was that. But I also go to Golden Guy a lot. So there's another spot.
Golden Guy, Roppongi. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is, what's your daily diet like? It's mostly Japanese food.
Coffee. My girlfriend makes bread, great bread. I eat anything.
All right.
So I think we're gonna have okonomiyaki. I eat sushi at least twice a week, something like that. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I eat pizza a lot. I like pizza. The Japanese diet is, I think, superior to the American diet. And that's one of the things I'm grateful about being in Japan. There's more vegetables and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's like, like I'm not a natto fan or anything like that. But yeah, in general, no, I don't think of it as Japanese food. Let me put it that way. I think of it's like, okay, even like, living in Japan as long as I have, it's kind of like, yeah, let's go get, I can't even think of, I don't know, because that's too like oily and stuff. But, if I ramen or getting some kind of salmon dish, or I don't even know. I mean, I usually just eat at home. Or if I go out with friends, I mean, we do eat a lot of Western stuff. So, I mean, it's like Japan. It's, you know what I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Do you want a lightning round the rest of these questions? There's at least 5 more.
No.
All right.
Oh my God.
So, all right. What part of Tokyo do you live in?
I live in Nakano.
All right.
which is actually a very, let me say, I want to say two things that are interesting about Nakano.
Okay.
Nakano is very, for Japan, and Nakano supports gay rights and human rights.
Oh.
There, as far as Japan goes, it's got a good track record, and also the area around Nakano Station, where Broadway, all of that, it's like completely condemned by the Japanese government. And if there's a big earthquake, that area, they're not even going to come into that area to rescue you.
Holy
So
shit! Really?
go over there, visit Nakano, the Nakano Broadway at your own caution.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know. Wow. All right. Well, I'm glad you asked that question now. All right. Next one is he mostly a writer or does he do any other jobs? I guess he's talking about when he says you, I'm sure he's referring to Norman.
Okay. To pay the rent, I do subtitling. I do, like I said before, the English coaching on films, PR, movie stills. I like doing movie stills. Still photographer, you take photos of the actors looking like they're acting. So I guess those are my main gigs.
Right. Okay.
I do more filming. Recently, I haven't been shooting any movies because I haven't felt the desire to. Oh, actually, I did making of. I do behind the scenes films. I just did a week of behind the scenes in Nagoya on a movie, and that was kind of fun. That's very easy. It's much easier to shoot video than it is to do stills, because the videos can be a little more funky, and you can get crew in and stuff. But with the stills, you're kind of battling with the director of photography, trying to get into that actor's like energy. So, okay, next one.
All right. Does Norman have PR? What? Does Norman have PR, meaning
nothing? Okay.
Permanent residency. And did the connection screw up? What happened?
I didn't hear what you said. Did you ask something though about my status?
No, the question was, does Norman have permanent residency, PR, Ejuken? Still in hear me?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. A-okay.
Okay, no, you're asking about what my status is in Japan, and okay. Japan is, I'm very lazy, and I've been doing these 3-year visas since I got here, and they keep, why in God's name do you not come down and work for permanent residency? And I keep on saying I'll do it, and I'm telling you I will do it next time.
There's always a next time.
Completely qualified, so I should do that. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it.
I mean, I think that one of the reasons why he probably asked this question is because it's not a lot of things people have, and it's not an easy thing to get. So,
really, I thought it was easy.
Well, it's a lot of paperwork, I've heard. But
well, that's the thing. I hate paperwork. So,
last question: where does he like to go as a default place if he has no plans?
Starbucks.
Meaning Starbucks. All right. Okay.
No, and when I say that, I mean,
answered that one.
And the only reason I go to Starbucks is because it's like the most comfortable place to do writing. When you go to like Dotoru or you go to these other places, the tables are very close to each other. They're made out of very thin wood. They're very uncomfortable. They're overly bright. So, I have several that I rotate around, and I'm only going there because I'm writing. They're just places to go and write and stuff. But I mean, I don't really go out as much as I used to when I first got here. Like, you know, when I lived in Osaka, every weekend I was going to Kyoto, I was going to Nara, going down to Wakayama, you know, sticking my nose all over. I've been to over 100 temples in Kyoto. I mean, doing that, but really at this point in my life, it's more about how much work I can produce. You know, I mean, I haven't had a day off this summer. This is what I'm doing with some free time, is talking to you now.
Yay!
And I like that. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what I mean, is like, I like movies, and I'm glad that I get to do this stuff, you know. So sure, it's work, but it's not, it's work I enjoy doing, you know. So that's why, you know, oh, and I wanted to add that I do supplemental stuff for DVDs, and I just got a job the other day. I have to write something on the John Carpenter film They Live, so I have to do like a several thousand-word essay on that film. So I mean, that's what I mean. Like, you know, when I go to get away, is I find a cafe, which embarrassingly enough is usually Starbucks, which wouldn't be Starbucks if I was in the US. Because the US has much cooler, you know, mom and pop places that are set up for people to do writing in. But you know, no, so getting away to sit down and write about movies that I like a lot. I mean, that's kind of where my head is at right now. Though I really would like to get away and go to an onsen for a couple days and leave my computer behind. I was planning on doing that all summer long, and I just keep on getting more jobs and stuff like that. So anyway, is that the last question there?
Yeah, no, my friend Tikio Sam wants to add, he says, Norman, you are the most interesting dude on this podcast so far. Please make more videos with Rad. Thanks for being on the stream.
You know,
no,
that's a very nice thing to say, and I appreciate that very much. And I want to say, you see, I just made this symbol. You know, Gene Simmons was trying to copyright this.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And I was watching, you know, I Drink Your Blood in the Cinema the other day, which was shot in 1970, 71. And when they're all like worshiping Satan, they're all going like this, you know, way before Kiss existed, or that dorkwad Gene Simmons. I used to be the biggest Kiss fan.
Yeah.
You know, it's, as you saw on my Facebook, I think I wrote like, that's it, I'm done with these guys, you know.
Yeah. Sad day.
As much fun I find their music as I find their music to be, those guys are human beings, you know. So anyway, thank you for having me here. I'm gonna go watch some sort of Star Trek-y thing with my girlfriend and eat. It's almost 9 p.m. Sunday.
Yeah. Went on a little, usually these interviews are only an hour, but I figured we had a lot to say, so.
Okay. Well, you know me, once I start talking, very difficult to shut the motor off. So.
Hey, it's always interesting. It's not like it's boring, you know, like I want to, you know, pull my ears out or something. That'd be different.
But. Okay, and I recommend getting pink headphones the next.
All right, okay. All right, I get like cute little flowers on them and everything.
There you go.
All right, so this was a live recording of me and Norman England on the show Why Come Japan podcast. Be sure to leave us a like if you like the show, you know, because interaction is good for the channel. Leave us 5 stars on iTunes if you're listening to this on iTunes. And next week
what do they do if they hate the show?
Well, if they hate the show, I don't know. I guess give it a bad review. I mean, actually, you know, you can give it a bad review, just still leave it 5 stars, and that's okay. Because
I love bad reviews.
Yeah. All right. Well, they say like the best reviews are the ones that have 3 stars or 4 stars, because that means they'll at least be honest. They won't be shitty. But
really? Okay.
No, I mean, like if you want to learn something about the show, like if you want to understand something, or not, doesn't know show anything.
Sid from the.
God damn it, this thing again.
Okay. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. Next week, Tokyo Bree. See you next time, guys. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.